Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Meiser Sheni, Pedig Dalit, Halacha Gimel, and Halacha Dalit. We're learning today Daf Lamed Tes. We left off on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph towards the end of the second line on the top of the Amid. Quickly recapping, our Mishnah taught us that a Evet Kanani legally is unable to acquire anything. Ubemela, when the Mishnah was giving the solution that can even be done lachatchila, of the owner not having to pay the choimish, the first solution was gifting the money to your friend with a certain non-verbal understanding that ultimately your friend will give the money back to you. But when the money is fully gifted to the friend will be the one making the opinion. So the Mishnah says that cannot be done with your friend who happens to be your Evet Kanani, and which means, why? Because he cannot acquire the money. Yad Eved, the Mishnah says, Yadoi ki Yad Rabbi. So the master will continue to be the owner of the money, so a chaimish will have to be paid. We learned yesterday that we find a contradiction from a Mishnah in Bava Metzia regarding when the borrower tells the lender explicitly, please send to me the cow that you're lending to me, that I am borrowing, even through your Eved. The moment the cow leaves the domain of the master, of the lender, or the owner, already the borrower is chayiv ba'oinsen. The question is, if Yad Evet always ki Yad Rabbi, so it's still in the hand of the lender. Why would the borrower be chayiv ba'oinsen? He did not take possession of it yet. So the Gemara says the solution for that will be, that's on top of Daf Lamed Tes, that it's not pshat that the Eved is like a shliach lekabbalah. No. Really, just like if there would be no Eved involved, if the borrower tells the lender, open up your gate and allow the cow to come to me, so that is considered kinyan enough, unique by borrowing, for him to be chayiv ba'oinsen the moment the cow left the domain, the physical domain of the lender. It's not pshat that we're saying that the Yad Eved has some sort of balabatishkeit independent of the owner. That's not the pshat. You don't need to have a physical possession of it. It's not that the borrower has to make an actual mishich. You don't need that. You need something minimum that he asked to the lender, that the lender did, which will be considered as if the borrower is making the kinyan. And therefore, he'll be chayiv ba'ansin right away. Now, we also happened to mention yesterday or 2 days ago a Mishnah in Eruvin that's speaking about when you want to place a shituf, and prior to placing the shituf in the mavui, the person who's placing it wants to acquire it on behalf of everyone who lives in the mavui, that an Evet Kanani cannot make that shituf. And we're going to begin today sharing that the same sugya, does an Evet have his own a legal ability to acquire, at least under certain circumstances. The problem that it appears that not. From Bava Metzia, it appears that yes, this whole shakel of Itaria will be relearned, but not based on the Mishnah here in Meiser Sheni, but on the Mishnah in Eruvin, with more nuances, as we'll see. For example, we have in a Mishnah in Kedushin, there's a machlokes regarding whether one who will give a gift to an Evet Kanani by saying explicitly, Eved, I'm giving it to you, al menas, on the condition that your owner will not acquire it. By a wife, legally, if a man says that to a woman who's married, she will own it. The husband will not own it. Does that apply by a Evet Kanani as well? That's really a machlokes. The Chachamim say yes, that the Evet will acquire it. Rav Meir says we never say that, because we always say Yad Evet ki Yad Rabbi, and therefore we'll speak out to therefore when we get into the Gemara. That will also be thrown into this sugya that will be closed without having a problem, resolved as we resolved it yesterday. But the ground zero of today's beginning daf won't be from the Mishnah in Meiser Sheni, it's going to be from the Mishnah in Eruvin. The Gemara then is going to move on to the second solution of harama in the Mishnah, which is that the Mishnah says that if there is no money at hand, even though we said clearly, we'll repeat it again, that ideally you want for the money to be gifted to the other, because you want someone else than the owner to be doing the pidyon, but if there is no money at hand, then you gift the produce. What we will find The Gemara is going to quote a Braisa that will tell you that this option is allowed of giving the produce even when money is at hand. In other words, there was an evolution. There was the ideal, theoretically, and then there was practically, it wasn't working out. And at some point, the Chachamim allowed, even when money is at hand, for you to gift the produce. And ultimately, we're going to learn of a third solution. All of that was because the Chaver did not give back, because he didn't need to. Because when you give the money or you give the produce, you are actually giving it to your friend with no strings attached. And that's the whole irony of life. You give something with no strings attached, but really there are strings attached. And that played itself out when people were purer and when people became a bit more selfish, or when people were more honest about their selfishness, however you want to word it. But anyway, all of that is going to be Halacha Gimel. Halacha Daled that we're starting on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis is a Mishnah that we quoted way back when in this Masechta. It's a Gevaldike Mishnah. Now that we established that when the Mishnah writes in the beginning, Perik Aleph, Halacha Aleph, that you're not allowed to do business with Meiser Sheni, that only meant that I, the owner of Meiser Sheni, am not allowed to sell my Meiser Sheni without it involving a pidyon. That I'm not allowed to do. So if I have Meiser Sheni and I sell it to you, and the understanding is that the Kedusha remains in the produce, I'm not allowed to do that. But if I am redeeming it, that was the whole thing. You can have even a bidding war. Then someone else, other than the owner, can redeem it. Okay. But when they redeem it, they're really doing two things. They're buying it and they're redeeming it. Now, what's amazing is that when it comes to the laws of buying, when does the transference of ownership happen? When the kinyan Meshicha is made. But when does the pidyon happen? When the money is given. What's going to happen if there is a price fluctuation between the Meshicha and the Kesef? Whether it went up, whether it went down. It's going to be very consequential. As we will see, all of the pratim in the Mishnah, that will be the first part of the Mishnah, and the second part of the Mishnah will be machlekes tanoim, whether one needs to make a verbal declaration when you are redeeming it. By verbally saying that the produce is being redeemed on this money. The Kedusha is being deconsecrated from the produce placed on the money. Does that have to be verbally articulated? For sure, lechatchila it should. Whether it must be machlekes tanoim, ume'inyan le'inyan, a complete different topic. That will be the last part of today's daf, which will be the end of the Mishnah, halacha dalid, when one is giving a get, or when one is marrying. Always the seder is gitten and kiddushin. So, by the way, when you give a get, the husband has to tell his ex-wife to be hadei zegitech. When a person affects kedushin, he verbalizes hadei nikudeshet li betabazoi kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. That's for sure lachatchila. Same question: what will happen if one did not make such a declaration? It's evident from the circumstances, like the Mishnah says, "Hoye medaber im ha'isha al iske gita v'kidushah." And in the context of speaking to a woman about her kedushin, that I'm going to marry you, by the way, it has to be clear to the Eidim, they have to also see that the man and the woman are talking about they are going to get married. In that context, he places a ring on her finger. Really doesn't have to be a ring. He gives her money. It's self-understood from their conversation, from the topic, that this is l'shem kedushin, but he never said the words. Same achloika, same tanoim, whether there has to be a verbal declaration, or at least b'di'evet, since it's evident from the circumstances that he gave her either the get l'shem, her get, or the money l'kedushin, l'shem, the kedushin, that it will go into effect. That's going to be today's daf. And Chevra, let's go inside Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph, towards the end of the second line. Rab Ze'era had the whole sugya that we learned yesterday, which was based on our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, mashma, not mashma, more than mashma. An Evet Kanani can never acquire something. Then we had a contradiction from Bava Metzia. So Rab Ze'era Shomallah Mahacha. That what? That the whole sugya, we already mentioned this yesterday. They had the same topic in the yeshiva when they were learning the Sechtas Eruvin. And we were speaking about the placement of an Eruv. Prior to the placement of the Eruv, we want for the Eruv, whether it's Eruv Chatzeres or and Shituf Muva'os, we need for the Eruv to belong to all of the residents. One way of getting everyone to participate is by actually collecting food from everyone. A simpler way would be that you take a barrel of wine and someone lifts it up on behalf of all of the residents, Hareni mezake, I am being zikui, right? Mezaken la'adam shaloi b'fanav. They don't even need to know you're doing it, because anything that I do on your behalf, which is only to your benefit, not at all to your detriment, whether it's mitam shlichus, whether it's a unique standalone halacha of schia, works. So the Mishnah writes in Eruvin that and I can ask my adult son to lift up the barrel of wine on behalf of everyone. Avol einoi mizaka, and that's the beginning of what the Gemara is quoting. Loy al yedei benoyu bitoy haktanim. A minor is unable to make an acquisition. We learned that sugya yesterday. And furthermore, veloy al yedei avdei v'shivchasei haknanim. Nor can one use his eved or shivcha knani. By the way, we learned yesterday that shivcha knani means a minor, because I take that back. A shivcha ivri means a minor. But avdei v'shivcha kananim. Why? Mepnei, same words we had here. Sheyodon ki yodoi, because the hand of the eved is like the hand of the master. So it never left. If I give a barrel of wine to my eved for him or her to acquire it on behalf of everyone, it's like me taking the barrel of wine, putting it into my left hand, picking it up on behalf of everyone. It doesn't work that way. There has to be another. In other words, if I am giving it for someone to acquire it on behalf of everyone, there has to be a transference from one to the other. The eved, Kanani, legally is not another. He's an extension of. In other words, so when they were learning that Mishnah, they said in the yeshiva, Leis Hada Amra, does this not say, speaking azoi, She'ein ha'eved zoichem et Rabbi lacher. Clear that even when the master is giving something to his eved, and he's saying, eved, acquire it for others. In other words, you can argue maybe that the yad eved ki yad rabbi, but if the rabbi is telling the eved, I want for you to acquire something on behalf of others, then it should work. Even there, it doesn't work, right? She'einu eved zoichai mirabbi la'acher. So when they learned that Mishnah, now what's amazing over here, they had the issue with this we didn't learn yesterday. We just mentioned this in the words of introduction from a Mishnah that we have in Kedushin, in Bavli Daf Chav Beis. Now, what is the Mishnah speaking about? Quickly, let me go over the dinim of emancipating a slave. When you emancipate a slave, there are two things that need to happen. It's fascinating. Evet Kanani. Number one, in many cases, the master would only free a slave if he got paid for his slave. So there could be a financial transaction involved. Someone gave the master money for him to free the slave. But even when that is what happened, even after the master received the money, the slave is also not free to go, just to make it clear. Because very much like a marriage, aside of the financial obligation that the man has to his wife, there is something that is much deeper than that. There's some sort of connection that exists. And in order to sever that, if there's going to be a get has to be given. Very similar. By a Evet Kanani, the master has to give to the Evet a shtar peturin. There is actual document that sets him free. The Mishnah in Kedushin is not speaking about the document part. The Mishnah in Kedushin is speaking about the financial part. In the case where the master wants to get paid for him to give a shtar shechrur. Let's say there is another person that likes this Evet and wants the Evet to go out free. Here's the question. For the other to give money to the master, for sure, why not? Could the other give the money to the Evet for the Evet to give money to the master? For his own freedom. Why not? Because since Yad Evet ki Yad Rabbi, the moment the other gives money to the Evet, who acquires the money, Aviv? The master. It's already his. So, you can't pay me with my own money. If you want to give a payment for something, I want to receive money for it. You can't use my own money for the payment. Okay. The question is, can someone tell the Evet, I'm giving you this money for your freedom. I don't want for your master to own this money. This is yours for you to give him for your own freedom. In other words, you gave a gift to an Evet almanas that the rabbi should not own the money just by the Evet taking it. The Chachamim say that's okay, that works. And therefore, it's possible for the Evet to give money to whom? for his own freedom. There is a possibility. Rav Meir holds that even if someone explicitly says, I'm giving you money, you Eved, for the rabbi not to own this money, of course, I want you to have money to free yourself with. According to Rav Meir, the moment the Eved took it, the rabbi automatically owned it.
According to Rabbi Meir, also the kiddushin is like this with the husband, between a husband and wife.
According to everyone, not a husband and wife, if someone gives money to a married woman, almanas, that the husband should not own that money, that works.
Also, Rabbi Meir.
Everyone.
Okay.
Very good. The only question is regarding an Eved. Okay, so 1 second. So when they were learning in the yeshiva in Eruvin, that's what Rabbi Zajac is saying. So from the Mishnah of placing a shituf muva'os, the Mishnah says categorically, an Eved Kanani can never place it. Now, when you learn the Mishnah in Kedushin, one might erroneously think that that Mishnah only goes according to Rabbi Meir. Rav Meir is the one that says that an Eved can never own something. L'cha oira, right? That is what they said. Because according to the Chachamim, if someone can give an Eved a gift, almanas, your rabbi should not have ownership in it. So if the rabbi himself is giving the barrel of wine to the Eved, and he's telling the Eved, acquire it on behalf of everyone, why would it not work? So indeed, the first approach was tiftar, to resolve, like Mishnah Neruvin mashma yad Eved ki yad rabbi. Mishnah in Kedushin, according to the Chachamim hold that Eved could have his own yad. He could have his own independent monetary jurisdiction. So therefore, tiftar ki Rabbi Meir. So they said, okay, the Mishnah Neruvin is only following Rav Meir. Rav Meir is the one that says categorically, Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi. That is what they suggested. And by the way, now that we have this, now we already learned yesterday the Mishnah in Bava Metzia. Remember the kasha? The kasha was, why is it that if the borrower tells the lender, send it biyad avdoi, why is the borrower chayiv ba'insin? And now we have an answer. The Gemara doesn't have to say it, because Rab Zajac is saying that once, when they brought in a stira from Kedushin, they said, the Mishnah in Kedushin follows Rab Meir, so I'm going to tell you now that the Mishnah in Bava Metzia follows the Chachamim. Follows the Chachamim, that there are circumstances where an Eved is not an extension of his rabbi. Hold on. Now asks the Gemara, and that is to what you just mentioned, Yakir. What about a wife? Do we say the same thing with a wife? Same Mishnah in Eruvin. Same Mishnah in Eruvin that spoke about the inability of a Eved Kanani placing the shituf by doing zikui, can be mizaka to others. And you're telling me right now that the Mishnah in Eruvin is only following Rav Meir. V'hatani ishtoi. The Mishnah, however, says that, I take back what I said. I made a mistake, Yakir. According to Rav Meir, one can also not give to a married woman a gift. Almanas, the husband should not own it. It's consistent. The problem is the Mishnah in Eruvin says that one is able to give one's wife the barrel of wine. A wife could place. The question is how? If you're telling me the Mishnah follows Rav Meir, well, according to Rav Meir savar yado isha ki yad baila. You got a problem. So now we have a problem. And the only solution for that is that if a wife can do it, who holds that a wife could be an independent legal entity? Only according to the Chachamim. Yet, even the Chachamim will hold that an Eved Kanani cannot place it. So we're back to the problem. That was the sugya. So for that they answered, Rab Chananya b'shem Rav Pinchas, tiftoir kaden tanoam. He said the following: when we learned in a Braisa, ishtoi eina poidoloi meiser sheni, we're going to go back that yes, Eruvin is Rab Meir. You asked the kasha according to Rav Meir, the wife should also not be allowed. But I told you Yakir is correct according to one Tana. So we find in a Braisa that the Chachamim hold ishtoi eina poidoloi meiser sheni. What does that mean, Yaviv? Not that a woman cannot make a pidyon. It means that if you want to exempt yourself from paying a fifth by telling your wife, make the pidyon, if yad ishtoi ki yad bala, so if she does it, who's doing it? The owner has to pay a fifth. But Rab Shimon ben Elazar says in the name of Rab Meir, Ishtoi, yes, poidoloi ma'aser sheni. Now you see that according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Yakir, Rav Meir differentiates between Eved and Isha. V'hadein tanoa Rab Meir, avad yad Eved ki yad Rabbi, v'lo yad Isha ki yad Bala. So here you see that according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Meir does not equate Ishtoi and Eved. A wife, according to Rab Meir, could be an independent entity, which is why in Eruvin, the Mishnah is saying that a wife could acquire the shituf on behalf of everyone. And the Eved can never do it. But all of that is because we followed Rab Meir. I'm going back. And the Mishnah in Bava Metzia, that's important, will follow the Chachamim. So they came to a whole different conclusion. That's Gavaldik, different than what we said yesterday. Now, I know Rabbi Mendel is not here this moment, but he asked a very practical thing. Because where do we find today? I know that, first of all, today in LA, you have to make, according to our Rabbanim, even though there is an Eruv, you have to make an Eruv Chatzeris. I always mention it. And since that Goyim also live in many complexes, you have to know what you're doing. You have to first acquire the rights from the Goyim. It's a two-step process. Then you take a box of matzah, and someone else has to acquire it for everyone that lives here. But not everyone does it. You know where everyone does something similar? Eruv Tavshilin. So Rabbi Mendel asked yesterday by an Eruv Tavshilin. First of all, if I make an Eruv Tavshilin without doing a Zikui, I did a perfectly good Eruv Tavshilin. But nevertheless, in the Siddur, it says prior to doing the Eruv Tavshilin, give the bread or matzah and the cooked meat, fish, egg to someone else. That other else picks it up on behalf of everyone. So now everyone owns it. And that's why when you make the Eruv Tavshilin, you declare you're making it not only for you, you're making it for all of the Jews that live in the city. No, you don't need an Eruv Chatzir, you live in a home. People. Now, 1 second. So Rabbi Mendel asked, what happens? What happens if you don't have an adult son in your home? This is mamash our topic. I was just curious. I looked yesterday in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. So the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Siman Tov Kuf Chav Zayin Seif Chai Seif Yud Ches. I know that the context is not exactly, but it's exactly what we're talking about. And what the Alter Rebbe says regarding making an eruv, that Benoi Katan, the Alter Rebbe says, can never be used. This is mamash what we learned yesterday. Even though, what did we learn yesterday, Aviv? That in the Chachmei Bavel, they held that minor children, once they have enough seichel, right, to know that whatever is not theirs should be guarded to be returned, whether a nut, whether a stone, then they are able to acquire. We don't paskin that way. Not only that, the Alter Rebbe says that if you have in your home a B'nai HaGadol, B'nai HaGadol would mean Iran, Aviv. He's B'nai HaGadol, he's over by mitzvah. But Aviv is not working yet. Thank God, you're in yeshiva. So even an adult son, that's Ha'oichel Mishel Aviv, does he have an independent hand? In halacha, the Alter Rebbe says only b'di'evet. Lechatchila, don't even make a kinyan. I'm reading that lefikach yochel balabayis lezakois al yodei se'eruv afilu b'noi imeinoi kotin afal pisha lechatchila ein lezakois al yodei b'noi hagadol hoichel mishal aviv mikol makoim. The only reason why it works is that if you have a B'nai HaGadol that sometimes eats separate from his parents, in America it's always that way. It used to be that everyone only ate together. Today everyone is eating. They eat together, they eat alone. The Alter Rebbe is giving a justification why b'di'evid, a B'nai HaGadol that is soymech HaShulchan Aviv has a yad. And then the Alter Rebbe writes, V'chein im hu noisen le'ishtoi kemach ubastar. The Alter Rebbe is saying that if a wife sometimes makes her own food and doesn't always eat with her husband, which is normal today, at least for me it's normal. You eat together and you eat alone if you're hungry. Then you can make the Eruv Tavshilin with your wife. That's exactly what I told Rabbi Mendel. Well, bottom line is that when it comes to the Eruv Tavshilin, and if you have minor sons, you have to make it with your wife. Even if you have a son over bar mitzvah, if you are supporting him because he's not working yet, then it's still better to use the wife. The wife should be the one making a kinyan on behalf of everyone who lives in the city. We don't say yad isha ki yad baila. We don't say that, Yakir. First of all, we know that, so we don't have to go into halacha. You show me yad isha ki yad baila. It's a whole different world, my friends. But it's gavaldik. This is important. Yes.
The wife can
The wife acquires it on behalf of everyone. Who does that follow? We just learned right now. That follows, first of all, the Chachamim, and according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, even Av Meir. That's it. This is the Arasugya.
That's fully lechatchila.
And that's even more lechatchila, but there's another nuance by Erev Tavshilan, and that nuance is that if in the family people only eat together when the husband is eating, then you can't make a kinyan, not with your wife, not with your son. The adult son who's living off your estate. And because if you are all living, if you eat together, it's about food. If you are always eating together, they're not considered an independent entity to be able to acquire it on behalf of everyone.
Rabbi, I don't know if we have time for this, but how Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar learns that Rabbi Meir will subscribe that the wife is also can be acquired?
It makes sense. It makes sense. How can you compare a wife and an eved should be the same?
100%, but I'm saying how's Rabbi
100%
Shimon
the
ben
same or not
Elazar
the same? In other words,
learn?
I don't think I think it's what they heard from their teachers.
Gotcha.
It's more, what did Rabbi Meir say? See, it was so strong by me. I prepared it yesterday. That when you asked me that before this, I completely forgot that there was another opinion. It's only his opinion, but that we don't equate to Eved and Eish. Okay. Now we are moving on to the second ha'arama of the Mishnah. Now the Mishnah verbalized it in such a way in which the Mishnah made clear, if I'm the owner of the produce, Aviv, I'm the owner of the money, we're speaking about, I'm redeeming it, I'm allowed to lechatchila not pay the fifth. So the Mishnah says the money should be gifted to someone else. Then the Mishnah says, the Mishnah is giving an example where I'm standing in the threshing floor. Why did we have to say that? The Mishnah is giving a scenario where I don't have the money readily available. So since I don't have the money, I should gift the produce. And what did we say when we learned the Mishnah? We said what we learned the Mishnah is that when Rabbi wrote the Mishnah, what he is implying is that from the two options, much better to gift the money. Why? Because when I give you the money, who does the pidyon? The pidyon is done by the guy who's holding the money. Everyone knows me to be the owner. If I am gifting you the produce, but I still hold on to the money, and I am doing the pidyon, how do I do the pidyon of it? If I say that made the kedusha of the produce go into the money, I'm still the owner. Now, the emes is I'm not the owner because I gave away the produce, but no one knows that. But if I gift the money, I don't even do the pidyon, which is better. The other does the pidyon. Whoever owns the money is making the verbal pidyon. You got it? So that's the Mishnah. And now, the Gemara is going to quote a Braisa. And at some point, whenever that happened, even though Rebbe did not put it in the Mishnah, the Chachamim allowed, even when you own the money, to use strategy number 2, to give away the produce. And all of that is based on one premise. In many areas in halacha, there was something called a matana al manas lahachzer, and that's a lechatchila. So, for example, when by taking the mitzvah of lulav, the first day, which is the only biblical day outside the Beis Hamikdash, the Torah, the Chazal tell us that God lokachtem lochem means it has to belong to you. To get the mitzvah, you have to own it. Borrowed is not enough; you have to own it. So, what do? I give you my lulav and esrog as a gift, but I want it back. So there I am allowed to tell you I'm giving it to you as a gift on the condition you give it back. The Chazal did not allow that here. Here meaning I own the produce, I own the money, I don't want to pay the fifth. You know what I can do? I can give you the money or the produce and tell you I'm giving it to you as a gift on the condition you give it back. If I were to say that, a chaimish will have to be paid. Clear. You know why this ha'arama works? Because I am actually gifting you the money. Full. The money is yours, or the produce is yours. But 1 second. But I want it. So there's a non-verbal understanding that after you'll make the opinion, you'll give me back the money. But what happens if you wouldn't give me back the money? Do I have any legal recourse against you? No, I do not. And that's exactly what began to happen. What began to happen is that people didn't want to pay the chaimish, so they gave away the money. You know what the other guy did? The other guy kept the money. Now, the fact, Aviv, that the money became imbued with Kedushas Meiser Sheni, what do you care? You had no money. Now I gave you 100 shekel. Okay, but say this. So this 100 shekel, when you go to Yerushalmi, you'll buy food. Anyways, you go to Yerushalmi. Even in LA, everyone here every now and then goes to Yerushalmi. And when we go to Yerushalmi, some of the expense goes for food. Now, people don't have that taiva. The biggest temptation is money. The same thing you can argue with produce. People didn't do it with produce until when they did. But in the beginning, the guys who, even though the chaverim, until money. Once money comes in, it tests the chavershaft. So that's what the Baraisa says. But Roshoina, initially, Hoya Oisin came b'mois. That they did what the Rebbe is implying. Lechatchila, don't give away the produce, give away the money. And they gave away the money. And the new owner of the money made the pidyon. The hope was the owner is going to give the money back. But all of a sudden, they would take the money and run. By the way, they didn't run anywhere. They just didn't give it back. And again, you see that the solution was not, well, give a gift al manas lahachser. They did not allow that over here. So then, the solution for that was iskinu shioisim bapedes. And initially, in that phase, when people got produce, and by the way, the produce was not my Sheni produce, right, Aviv? If I have produce and I give you the produce and then I own the money and I say that the Kedusha of the produce goes on the money, then what do you own right now? Chulin produce. Okay, you're my friend, you would give it back. That was the understanding. But at some point, you also kept the produce. At some point, they kept that. So what do you do now? So they made up a third strategy that Rebbe Bechal didn't write about. And what's the third strategy? Aviv, you know what I need to do? I need to gift to you the money, but without you having physical possession over the money. Now, are you going to go demand it from me? Which you could. That you didn't do. In other words, there is a certain understanding that I want to keep the money. So if I put the money in your hand, at some point you kept the money. Now, how can I gift you money without you making a kinyan over the money? How would I do that? Legally, how can I transfer ownership, whether of money or of produce, without you taking possession of it? One of the mediums is called kinyan agav. Kinyan agav means is that when you acquire a piece of land, when you make a kinyan on land, that kinyan you have to make, I can tell you that together with the land, I'm putting in all of my Meiser Sheni money. And there, even though you didn't physically take possession of it, since you made a kinyan on the land, it goes with the land. And that's what the Gemara says. That's what the Baraisa says. That at some point, iskinu sheyehei mizakaloi echad ma'asora lekarka. I know there are different girsois, how we read it. We are following the Rashi Ilyo's girsa. 1/10 of land doesn't mean a tenth. It means I would give you a small piece of land. You would make a kinyan over a small piece of land. And I would tell you that with the land. Now, how do you make a kinyan of land, Aviv, if you're not with the land? What are the 3 kinyanim you can make for land? Very good. Kesef, shtar, and chazak. I can make a shtar. So I can write a document, and I can give to you a millimeter. It means a little sliver of my land. And I tell you in the document, together with that, I'm giving you all of my Meiser Sheni money. The moment you take the document, you own the land and you own the money. Now the money belongs to you. And now I tell you, now that you own the money, make the pidyon. What's beautiful is it never reached the point that you would take me to a din trader to actually get the money from me, which, by the way, you could. So far you didn't go. I think people are tempted when they have it in their hand. When you have it, to give it up is difficult. If you never take possession of it, and there's an understanding, I'm only doing it to get out of the 5th. That worked. Point of the Gemara is that for this ha'arama to work, the gift has to be complete. How do you know that the gift is complete? You know how you know? How do I know, Aviv, if I give you a gift that there's no strings attached? What I would prefer is for you to give me the money back. But you know how I know that I really gave you a gift? In the case where you do not give me the money back, I'll be okay with it. That's called a gift. And that's a very good klal in life. I would say like this, that we're human beings, we're not angels. So every time I give you something, remember that there is something that I would like to get in return. That's you. We're not angelic. We don't say it, but we mean it. We're hoping. But the question is, what would I do if I'm not getting back from you what I want? If I'll be okay, then I'm okay. Even though I have an agenda, so what? I'm human. Like to expect you're going to get married, to expect that you should give and not want anything back is not human. But if you get nothing back and you're still giving, then you're a good man. You're giving, and you have to be ready not to get anything back. That's what we're saying. That's the last piece of the Gemara. That Rabbi Inya, look at these new names. Bar Sisi, he once went to Rabbi Yoina. And this Rabbi Inya had produce and had money of Ma'aser Sheni. And he wanted to make use of the strategy of the Mishnah. Amarlei, so Rabbi Inya gave Rabbi Yoina his sell of Ma'aser Sheni. And he told Rabbi Yoina, Afrik loch b'hadasila, please redeem my Ma'aser Sheni with your seller that I gifted to you. Okay. And he did that. And then Rabbi Yoina tells Rabbi Inya, if you want your money back, then take it back. If you want it. Rabbi Inya took the money from him. Gavaldik. Now, what was the point of that statement? If you want the money back, take the money back. Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis. Amar Rabbi Yoina says, Kacha Odas Daite. I assessed Rabbi Inya's intentions. I was misha'ed his das. And I knew that if I would not have told him, take your money back, the ilo nasta lo yahava amar li klum, if I would have taken the money and not giving it back, Rav Inya would not have complained. Rav Inya would have been okay with it. What does that mean? What does that prove, Aviv? That Rav Inya gave him the money without strings attached. He had the right to want it back. And if he was given the option, he took it back. But he was also ready for the money not to be given back. It's Gavaldik. And therefore, Lefum Kein Yahavas Yasasle. And that's why I gave him the money back. Because it worked. So this is a very good conclusion. And that's a very good moral in life. Theoretically, we should all give without any strings attached. The problem is that we have in us a selfishness. We're not getting rid of that. So when I give you something, I have something in mind. So does it taint it? Depends. If I will be okay if I don't get anything back, then it didn't taint it. No, the Gemara says that if a person gives tzedakah, and he wants that God, because of the tzedakah, should bring a refuah shalema for a son, right? I'm giving tzedakah al menashe yichya b'ni, on the condition that my son will live. You know what the Gemara says? That's a tzaddik gomer. So the Gemara says, how is it a tzaddik gomer? Isn't it like a selfish? It's not pure. He's giving to get. So the Gemara answers, yeah, he's giving to get. But if his son, God forbid, will not live, he will not regret giving tzedakah. That's why it's a tzaddik gomer. That's a very down-to-earth understanding of a tzaddik. Like, don't expect of yourself to be not human. Going beyond yourself means, even though you would like something, if you're not getting it, you're still going to be okay. Got that? That's a good thing. Now, this Mishnah we already learned before. We said it in the intro. Let me give you the simplest case. The simplest case is where there is another who's redeeming my Ma'aser Sheni, not because of a harama or because of a harama. I have a sella's worth of produce. Aviv, you offered the seller in an isser. We learned that 2 Mishnayos ago. You're going to be doing the redemption, but you're buying the produce. In the normal case, you're buying the produce. So when you give me the money and you take the produce, what happens? The produce becomes chulin, and now I own a seller and an isser, and I have to take it to Yerushalmi. Okay, we're good. Now, when do you acquire, Aviv, the food? when do you own it? When you do Meshicha. Meshicha acquires metaltalin. When does the pidyon happen? When you actually give me the money. What will happen if there is a price fluctuation after the Meshicha, before the money was given? Price fluctuation can go in two directions. The food can become more expensive or less expensive, and the Mishnah speaks out both of these possibilities. Says the Mishnah, Mashach memeno ma'aser b'sela, you aviv, not a seller and an iser, just a seller. You bought my produce by committing to give me a seller. We both consented, and now you took possession of the food. So now you own the food, but what's the status of the food? Still ma'aser sheni. It only goes out l'chulin when the pidyon was done. What's the pidyon? For you to declare that the kedusha of the food should go into the money. But for that, normally, money is needed. You didn't give me the money yet. But v'lehispik livdoisai, prior to the pidyon, prior to you, Aviv, giving me the money, now the price of food became more expensive. The same food that you took now is worth 2 sela. Huge inflation, 100% inflation. So here is the thing. How much money do you need to pay for the food? What do you think, Aviv? A seller or 2? Only 1. Why only 1? Because since when you made the kinyan, what was the food worth? 1, that was our agreement. The price up benefited whom? When something that you own goes up, who benefits? The owner. Who is the owner? You're the owner. Why are you the owner? Because you already made the Mashiach. So you only owe how much? 1 sela. But 1 second. But to make a pidyon, you can't use 1 sela. It's not enough. Because since during the time of the pidyon, the food is worth 2 sela, 2 seloyim are needed to make the pidyon. But you don't have to give me the 2nd sela. What does have to happen, Aviv? You have to designate, you, the buyer, you designate a 2nd seller. So when you say the pidyon that the kedusha of the food goes onto the money, the owner of the money says it. You're making that statement. You only give me 1 seller and you keep 1 seller. So what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with the food plus one of your seloyim will become ma'aser sheni that belongs to you. And by the way, you'll have to take it to Yerushalmi. So the additional seller remains in the possession of the buyer.
So what? First step.
First step is the Mashicha. The Mashicha affects the kinyan, and then the money affects the pidyon. Since when the kinyan was made, at that time it was worth a seller, you will never be obligated to buy it for more than it. The food is worth 2 sela. Food is worth, so you benefited. Good luck at you. You bought something for 1, and now the market price became 2. You buy a house in LA and it doubles the price. Who benefits? The owner. But the pidyon is being done while it's worth 2. 2 seloyim are needed, but you don't give me the 2nd seller. You get to keep it. Now let's go in the opposite direction. What happens if when you made the Mashiach, it was worth 2? That means you agreed to give me how much? 2. But when the time comes, the price fell, deflation, 100% deflation, right now the food is only worth 1 sela. So you know what happens, Aviv? 1 second, how much money do you have to give me? 2. Why do you have to give me 2? Because when you made the Mashiach, what did you commit to? 2. But really, how much of the 2 is needed to deconsecrate? Only 1. So if you have your own seller of ma'aser sheni, if you have your own, you can use that as the 2nd seller. You only have to give me 1 seller that's chulin, that is going to be used to deconsecrate, because during the time of the deconsecration, the food is only worth 1 seller, and the 2nd seller that you have to give me could be ma'aser sheni, which is gavaldik. Now, normally you say that you're not allowed to pay a debt with ma'aser sheni, not over here, because I know that you owe me 2 sela, and you're giving me 2 sela, But you don't have to give me 2 saloim of chulin because they're not needed. Why? Because for the pidyon, only 1 selah is needed. Whatever was Meiser Sheni is remaining Meiser Sheni. Eloma, instead of you owning it, I'm going to own it, which is great. And now there's a nuance that im hoya am haaretz. If I, the seller, if I am an am haaretz, in the second case, you're not allowed to give me the second seller of Meiser Sheni. You see, up until now, if I'm an am haaretz, you are allowed to be poida my Meiser Sheni. You're giving me money that will become Meiser Sheni. So what? I own produce that's Meiser Sheni. So it's just an exchange. In other words, it's not good for Meiser Sheni to belong to an Amma Aretz, but it already does. If I'm an Amma Aretz, I already own it. But in the second case of the Mishnah, where you Aviv, you the buyer, you the chaver, you're going to give me a second seller, that second seller is something that I'm getting in addition, the second seller. Because right now it's only worth 1. That cannot be done if I am an Amma Aretz, then the second seller will have to be a seller of chulin. And now, as we spoke out in the intro, I know that it's late, but let's chapanayim. The second part of the Mishnah is about, do you need to verbally declare the words of pidyon? Hapoy de ma'aser sheni, whoever is doing the pidyon, however it's done. If they did not actually v'leikara shein, which means they did not verbally declare what they're doing, but it's self-understood what they are doing, Rabbi Yossi says, dayoy. Dayoy means it's takanat lechatchila, but you don't have to explicitly declare this kedusha is going on to the money. Rabbi Yehuda holds, no, that even b'di'evet it will not be good. Sarech lefaresh. And the same thing we have when it comes to saying the words Harei Zagitech or saying the words Hareyat Mikodeshet Li. If there is a conversation between a man and a woman, whether it is, God forbid, about a get, whether it is about getting married, and it's self-understood from their conversation that he's going to give her a get or that he's going to give her kedushin, and she wants it. It's all that is clear from their talk, and the witnesses see that. But then when he actually gives her the get, he doesn't say the words Harei Zagitech. Or when he gives the ring on her finger, he doesn't say the words Hareyat Mikodeshet. Nasan Lagita or V'Kiddusha V'Loi Peidash. Same Tanoim. Rabbi Yossi says, b'di'evet it's okay. You don't need to make a verbal declaration. It's better, but if it's self-understood, then it's okay. Rabbi Yehuda says, Sarech Lefaresh. It will not be effective. Just want to say that you have every now and then, it's rare, you have these terrible stories, terrible because it complicates everything, where you have 2 young people, a man and a woman, and even if they're joking around, right, they're speaking about we're going to get married, and everyone jokes, all of the chavedim says, you guys are a couple, and then from ignorance, he goes ahead and he buys her a stupid present, and he gives it to her, just to know that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a shayla. If he didn't say Hareyat Mikodeshet Li, it's fine. According to Rabbi Yossi, could be there's a problem. B'chal, the minig that we have Hasidim is that when we actually get engaged, even though there's an inyan to give gifts to your kala, you know what gift we do not give to our kala, Aviv? But the lahavdol, the goyim call a engagement ring. We never give an engagement ring because a ring implies kedushin. You know when we give an engagement ring? It's called a diamond ring. In the yichud room, what we gift is anything but not a ring. You give a bracelet, you give a watch, you give a necklace, and even that you don't give it to her. Just the way it's done today. You're going to find out is that you go to a jewelry store, she picks out what she likes, and she picks it up. You pay for it, or Iran will pay for it, or your mom will pay for it, huh? Even more. So Rabbi Shachar is saying that that the reason not you're going to be a working man, but l'shem shamayim, your parents will pay for it because you don't want to give her a gift because it shouldn't appear like something connected to it. Now, by the way, if there's no edim, it's also not a problem. But if there are edim, according to Rabbi Yossi, a problem means not a problem. By marriage, it's not a problem.